Do you own video games? Probably, because you're watching this video. But did you know that some video games are really rare? So, let's talk about them. Let's start off with Atari 2600 games. The first game I'd like to talk about is Air Raid, developed and published by Manavision, which is a really great company name. This is also the only game released by Manavision, probably the only thing Manavision ever did, because you can't find crap about them online. Air Raid is a game where you control a ship and shoot down enemies. I didn't really like the game because the enemy hitboxes were not very good. And what's weird is that when I failed to shoot one down, I didn't lose any lives. You only lose once you get hit 3 times, so it's basically Space Invaders, but worse. The cartridge is also pretty cool. It was a T-handle cartridge and it didn't have a game name on it, just the picture on the game box. I can't figure out where the game really came from because Manavision seems to be a red herring. There are a lot of theories about where the game came from, but there's no definite answer. How much is the game worth though? According to price charting, the loose price is about $8,500 and the complete price is about $33,000. Some loose carts were sold for a lot less than $8,500 on eBay though. Eli's Ladder is an educational game, but you really need the manual for it. The game has 2 modes, subtraction and addition. The question pops up and you have to move an arrow to the number that answers the question correctly. Every time you get a question right, Eli moves up on his ladder once. You need to do this 20 times and you win. There's also an apple counting mode, but I just can't figure out how to make that one work. But setting up the game is a whole different story. When you start up the game, you will get a menu for game settings. You change the TV type to change how much time you have to answer the math question. If the TV type is set to black and white, the game is counting apples. I think pressing game select changes the game number, but if you're playing, it goes back to the title. Game reset starts the game, and the player 2 difficulty determines if it's an addition or subtraction game. The player 1 difficulty determines if the questions advance automatically or not. Apparently there are 480 game variants. Anyway, the reason I put this game on the list is because it came with way more than just the box and the cartridge. It came with 2 face cards, stickers, a difficulty chart, and an award chart. If you also wanted 2 award charts and more stickers, you could get them by mail for $2.50. How much is the game worth though? It varies. I saw ones being sold for $50 and some $5,000. Price charting says that new price is only $200 though. I think that's a little inaccurate though because I only see images for the box and the cartridge. If a copy with everything the manual said the game came with is found, it'll probably be sold for way more than $200. Birthday Mania is a custom-made game for birthdays. While about 10 to 15 copies were originally sold or given to people who helped out, only 2 copies are currently known to exist. The cartridge would have a spot to put the recipient's name, and that name would also show on the title screen with Happy Birthday playing. The actual game was where you played as a guy named Mr. N. Nervous, who would blow out candles. If you missed the candles too many times, you would lose. How much is the game worth though? An offer to get a copy for $6,500 was unsurprisingly turned down in 2009, but there's no definitive value because none were bought in modern times. Game Attack also only has 1 good copy known to exist. You were only able to get it by mail order from 1 ad in 1 magazine. It was made by Gamation, and not the only thing Gamation ever did. They made some controller add-ins for other consoles. But apparently they still have a website, so let's check it out. Oh great, their entire website is just 1 page with a small paragraph of info, and for some reason a winter time-lapse video. I saw this chat button, so I decided to contact them. Quailafru at FishingRuinedMyMarriage at YouTubePart2.org better get an answer soon! It makes sense though because apparently the company was revived by some random guy once Gamma Attack got a tiny bit of attention. In the game you play as an alien spaceship shooting down tanks while avoiding tank bullets, and if you get shot too much, you turn into a bunny. The game was reproduced by a different programmer with 100 copies and the game has been bootlegged since. So, what is the rarest Atari 2600 game? I don't know, but what's the best rare Atari 2600 game? Kilobyte Generator! Now let's move on to the NES games. What is Action 52? The backstory behind this is that the main developer once played one of those unlicensed multi-cart games, and then Raul Gamila and Vince Perry founded Active Enterprises. After recruiting a few programmers, they made Action 52, and they thought that this game was so great. Action 52 is a collection of 52 awful and buggy games with horror controls, horror music, and a ton of crappy graphics and names. And they wanted $199 for this. Since there are 52 games, I won't talk about them all, but here are some pretty interesting ones. Ooze, popular for having okay music, and infamous because there was a contest where if you beat the game, you could win $52,000, but the game crashed on level 3, so there was no way to actually win the contest. Alfredo and the Fettuccinis. I only included because once you select the game, it's misspelled horribly as Alfredo and the Fettuc in the menu. Cheetah-Man. Probably the most known game here. In the game you play as a Cheetah-Man and go through levels. This game actually has pretty good music. How much is it worth? The loose cartridge is about $207, while the complete thing is about $350. What's weird is that the cart had 2 revisions. Revision A had 2 games that wouldn't start up, and Revision B fixed them. Seriously, this game is so weird. I might make a video on it. This game also got its own wiki, which also got this wonderful comment. Winnie Pooh got diarrhea and his skin gets. This game is a fitness game published by Bandai, and it uses the Family Fun Fitness Pad. When it came out, Nintendo bought all the rights to the game, rebranded it World Class Track Meet, and made it to be used with their own accessory, the Power Pad. All available copies were recalled, but a few copies were sold. There weren't any big differences from what I could tell. How much is it worth? The loose cartridge is about $15,000, and the complete price is about $39,000. That's a lot of money. In 1990, Nintendo held a competition to determine the best Nintendo players in 3 different age groups. It toured 29 cities across the USA. There were 2 types of carts, the gray ones and golden ones. The gray ones were given out to winners at the competitions. Only 90 of these exist. The golden ones were given out after the competitions, and they gave out 26. I can't find prices for these carts because a lot of websites say different stuff. There was also another competition called the Nintendo Campus Challenge, which had an NES and SNES version with different games and objectives. The competition was toured across a bunch of college campuses across the USA. The one original cart was sold on eBay for about $14,000, but then was resold for $20,000. What? I won! There are a lot of rare NES games, but there weren't a lot of rare games that were that interesting to me. So let's try moving on to Sega Genesis games. This is an example of an exercise game for Wii Fit. What made this game really interesting was that it came with a whole variation of the Sega Genesis console. The game was controlled with your heartbeat and other motion controls. There was little info on this game, so I don't really know how those controls work in the game, other than that they are really important to the game. And if you want to emulate this game, good luck, because it requires the peripherals it came with to even boot. You won't think that one of the most classic games would be so rare, or at least just the Mega Drive version of it. This was a version of Tetris that was cancelled because of licensing issues. This is mostly a collector's item because if you wanted to play Tetris, you could just play Tetris. This is very rare because after the licensing issues, all copies produced were destroyed. Or at least that's what you think. 4 copies are known to exist. 2 copies are owned by one person, and there's also one that's signed by one of the actual Tetris creators, Alexei Pahitnov, which was listed on eBay for $1 million, and one is held in the Museum of Play. How much is it worth? Again, there's not a definitive answer, but we do have that $1 million eBay listing. From this point, the games will be less categorized because businesses made more copies of their games when they would publish them, and it was getting harder for people to make their own games by themselves and succeed. But that only applies to the old consoles. This game was made to train soldiers for shooting in a cheaper way. The gameplay was shooting down great targets with a gun peripheral. That's right, a gun peripheral. According to SNES Central, the gun was a replica of the Jaeger AP-74 and it really felt like a real weapon. This was an official military game, so it was produced in small numbers. How much is it worth? The loose cartridge is about $1,300, but you need the gun peripheral if you want to actually play the game. The gun is about $2,200, which makes the complete game about $3,500. PT stands for promotional teaser, and that's what this game was, a teaser for the game Silent Hills. But when the game Silent Hills was cancelled, the game was removed from the PlayStation Store and you would not be able to reinstall it. So if you wanted to play this game on actual hardware, you'd have to buy a console with the game on it because the game was digital only. If you do want to sell it though, you'd make a profit nonetheless since the game was free. What was PT anyway? It was a psychological horror game where you would wake up in a house and then paranormal stuff happened. Basically, you would have to solve puzzles and walk, and once you got to a staircase, you would do the whole thing again, but a little different. After the final loop, the game tells you it was just a teaser, and then you delete the game, and boom, you just missed out on $300. How does it feel, Joey? How much does it cost? It used to be a major selling point after the game was deleted off the store, but not as much anymore. If you were in the time where it was actually important, though, most people would be selling it for $600. This is one of the rarest digital-only games. Games based on TV shows and movies have always existed, but they don't always sell well. An example of one of those is Futurama, based on the TV show with the same name. The game is pretty much your standard TV show video game. How much does it go for? The loose disc goes for about $180, and the complete thing goes for about $315. The Xbox version of this is also pretty expensive. Next up, Pokemon Box. This game was released differently across regions. The game was bundled with a GBA link cable and a memory card. What was this game? Well, it was more of a utility than a game. You were able to trade and store Pokemon you had in these following games, and was also able to play 2 of those games on the TV with the link cable. There's one outstanding difference with these versions of those games. You were able to take screenshots. There's also some showcase option, and you could look at Pokemon game pieces and also create your own. So how much does it go for? It differs between regions. In the USA, the loose copy goes for about $1,200, and the complete thing is about $2,300. And the complete thing with everything else included seems to be about $3,000. The PAL version costs way less than that though, only being in the hundreds, and the Japan version is so rare people are accidentally selling it for $26? I wonder why. This was a disc for the Wii that would install the first version of the Wii menu onto a Wii. But why would you need it? The Wii has the OS preloaded onto it. Well, for some Wiis, that was a different case. This was mainly for kiosk Wiis and was also made to set up Wiis before the actual menu was completely developed. Wiis developed at this time what would only start up with a menu that would tell you to put in the supposed disc, and then it would install like that. 11 of these discs are known to exist. Sorry for cheating, because this really isn't a game and more of a dev tool or utility. How much does it cost though? Don't ask me, pretty much no one has one, and if someone does have one, they aren't exactly putting it up for sale. This disc was lost media for some time. Anyways, lightning round. I'm just gonna list a ton of these dumb games and give a short description to them. Cheetah 2, a prototype of a cancelled sequel to the game on Action 52, the Cheetah 6 levels were made, and you aren't able to get past level 4. The complete thing is about $5,000. Mr. Boston, this is a clone of the game Clean Sweep for the Vectrex, which was already a clone of Pac-Man. In this version, you control a top hat and nothing else has changed. The complete thing seems to cost around $15,000 or so. Red Sea Crossing, this is a Bible game for the Atari 2600, and the first game ever based on a Bible story. Between 100 and 500 copies were made, and 4 have been found. The game was sold at auction for around $11,000. Skyline Satchel Rim. This is one of the worst selling Wii games, but it's not known how many copies were sold. The game is about a dang cat being the CEO of a company, and then you gotta be accepted as an employee or something. The complete thing is about $700. Super Mario Bros. 3. The first production. This is just Super Mario Bros. 3, but the box art is a little different, and yeah. According to Price Chart, the loose cart is about $22 or so, but the complete thing is about $170. Well, that's it for the lightning round, and that's also it for the video, but I still need to talk about the rarest game ever, and that game is Potato Jump. It is an unlicensed prototype game for the Game Boy that was only released in northern parts of New Zealand via mail order, and the game sucks. The game was made by one guy, and 2 trillion copies were made, but only 1 cartridge is known to exist. The game came with a coloring book and 5 CDs. All the CDs are lost, and no one owns this game because it is illegal. This game also contains a unique peripheral in which to move you have to crap yourself. Every time she smiles, she takes me back. Now you're my always. Every time she smiles, she takes me back.